RiseAbsorb is redefining what growers expect from phosphate fertilizer. Backed by data and built for performance, RiseAbsorb helps reduce phosphorus losses, improve uptake, and boost ROI without increasing input costs. Join the next wave of growers switching to the next generation of phosphorus fertilizers by visiting phospholutions.com.
Okay, at Ag in Motion back in July, I was roaming around, walking through the different alleyways and streets, I guess we'll call them. And one of the companies that I ran into that wanted to get a bit of more of an update on, in Saskatchewan-based innovative company doing some pretty cool stuff, and that is Ground Truth Ag. We're joined right now by Kyle Folk, who is the CEO and founder of Ground Truth Ag. Hey, Kyle, how are we doing?
Good. Thanks, Sean. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so now, I guess, what problem is Ground Truth Ag trying to solve?
Man, I mean, if I could sum it up real briefly, I would say we are trying to solve the problem of grain grading. And so grain grading's been done in this manual, laborious way for over 100 years. Since the early 1900s, it's been done virtually the same way. There's been some small changes in it, but overall, we still have humans making judgment calls, ultimately, in a very subjective kind of way. And so it's really difficult to get a straight answer, get consistency, get transparency, causes all kinds of problems for the supply chain and, specifically on farm as well.
And I think one of the frustrations that farmers have is that the year can make a difference too. It's not just the individual grain grader, it's the what's number 2 this year, maybe number 3 next year, maybe it's even number 1 the year after that, depending on the supply and what the quality of the crop is out there. That's a little bit harder though to remove that kind of difference from year to year.
Yeah, I mean, that's the consistency piece. I think it's, ultimately, I mean, Sean, not uncommon for, a single farm to send multiple samples from the same pail, from the same bin to 3 different, potential buyers and get 3 different results back. So exactly what you're saying. And year to year, as you say, that can vary as well. The reality is, in Canada, our system is based on the Canadian Grain Commission and it's supposed to remain relatively consistent, right? Like they have their guidelines, they have their regulations that are in place. Now, there are some variations made to that, but across the board, it's supposed to remain the same. So some of these challenges come from, and hey, I'm not knocking anybody. Everybody that I've come across in the industry is doing a great job, the best that they can. But when you're handcuffed with having to make these really difficult calls on some things, it's really challenging. And so just a couple stats, Sean. It takes up to 8 years to fully train a grader. And that's purely based on different weather patterns, different weather cycles that show up only, every 6 to 8 years. Well, if I haven't seen something in 6 years, I'm not going to be very good at identifying that 6 years later. So that causes some of those challenges that we, see. And then also, graders, we're human. We're supposed to be 80% correct from a grading perspective. And so that causes some difficulties too. And so you combine these things and ultimately you can start to understand why we see this inconsistency and discrepancy.
Now, this is sort of like, I'll make an analogy here for you a little bit as you're going through this. It's sort of like the debate right now about the computerized strike zone in baseball. Right now we have human umpires, and we have the ability through the pitch zone to know, they grade on a daily basis which umpires were the most accurate at home plate versus the ones that were not. Okay, and humans make errors, but there's like this sort of nostalgic, sort of like cultural thing around, like, yeah, it was, he was giving us a little bit more room on the outside than the inside to right-handed hitters and all that kind of stuff. But we have the technology now to be able to say, nope, it was in this box. It's a strike versus it being a ball. But we're not moving very quickly to that all computerized system. Is that kind of with the technology improving in grain grading, are we able to move to 100% where it's technology telling us what the grade is, or do we still need humans?
It's a good question. And I like the analogy. I would say the difference between grading and the strike zone is the strike zone is very finite, right? It's in the box or it's out of the box. And so you have a strike or a ball. When we get into grading, there's a wide swath of, this subjective area that we're having to deal with today. Are we going to remove that down to zero? What we like to say, Sean, with a machine doing it, that a machine that can do it very, very well, you're going to move that wide swath down to a very narrow, narrow margin that really won't come into play anymore from, this way or that way perspective. So we can narrow that down. Now, the people, removing the umpires from the game, it's a long time, Sean, before that happens. There's so much that goes into grading grain. Hard red spring, for example, has 50 to 60 different visual characteristics that could show up in variations. And so you're starting, statistically speaking, you're getting thousands and thousands of variations that can come through on a grain sample. It's the deterministic versus the probabilistic
Yep.
element. And so, someday can grain grading be entirely deterministic by a machine? I believe it fully can. Is that day tomorrow? No, it's not. And so there's going to be this path that we go on to get to that point where it becomes deterministic. And in that journey, those graders are still going to be doing their thing. But what we can do with our machine is we're really good at a number of things and we can speed that process up for them. So Sean, biggest challenge that graders have today is the speed at which things need to get done. I mean, they're loading rail cars in under 4 minutes now.
Yeah.
That's wild. And so how do you assess grain properly when you're sampling and loading in 4 minutes? That's crazy. That's almost an impossibility. And so, they're doing the best they can. So we can help with those scenarios. We can help take care of certain things that, just becomes mind numbing for them. And so, over time that will change and shift, but right now it's an efficiency play.
So you're like a productivity assistant.
Yeah, but I think in order to be that productivity assistant, we need to be able to provide grades still, Sean. So this is not tell them a handful of characteristics and they can do the rest. We need to provide them the full gamut so that when we provide an output, they can see, okay, that's a grade one. Machine says it's grade one. We have no concerns. Yep, grade one. Whereas if you only provide a handful of characteristics, they still have to go and grade, look for everything else. And that, it's good. It's nice to have information, but at the end of the day, it's not something that can be transacted upon.
Do we have, so I think a lot of times when we talk to the farmer audience about this topic, the anecdotes that come out are where the farmer was maybe in the losing position, where they gave me number two, but I know it's a number one, because I had, the 6 samples I took out, there's one company that said I could get one and the rest were two. But there's also situations where probably, depending on the relationship farmers have with the company, they probably get maybe a little bit better grade than, the farmers can come in on the winning side of this as well. Do we have any idea? Are there any studies out there or data points to show what this is, what the discrepancy in grades is costing or benefiting the farmer over a number of years?
You know what? There's none that I'm aware of, Sean. I wish there was because it would make my pitch a lot easier. But at the end of the day, that question to me, how I summarize that question is how much. So I came from the farm, so I get it. Like, growing up, we had good relationship with our buyers, but at the end of the day, we still felt that we were bearing all the risk and that they were taking as little as possible. And that, at times we felt that maybe we were getting the short end of the stick. Since I've started Ground Truth Ag and I've gone out and started talking to all the grain buyers, I have completely 180'd on that point of view. That's not the intent. That's not what they're trying to do.
Right.
But you get this inevitable feeling of that trust becomes broken just because it's situational.
Yeah, there's a gap, right?
Yes.
I think you put that very well. I think too many times people jump to there's like something nefarious going on here.
Yeah.
Like I think you spoke to one of the main issues, the length of time of training to get, to somebody so they're like super uber good at this, or they have all of the skills in this profession, and the understaffing. Like it's hard to find people to source labor, right? And so I think there's a under resourced component to this, and like you mentioned, also the speed of loading those rail cars, that's sort of shifted the ground here a little bit. There's Ground Truth Ag shifting the ground. Anyway, I'm helping you with your marketing, but it just, things have changed, and so we need we need as many tools as we possibly can get so that grain grader can get it done as accurately and also as fast as they possibly can.
Yeah, yeah. And you talk about, so when we talk about like money left on the table and measuring that information, Sean, I think the reason why this hasn't been, there's no statistics around this specifically is because from a farm perspective, we never knew what we were leaving on the table. It's really hard to measure that when all you have to determine your quality, first off, Sean, is points per million, right? We're sending a 1 to 2 pound sample that is supposed to be representative of like 40 tons. Like, how is that repeatable and usable over, so anyway, that brings a whole bunch of other things, and we're testing our equipment on combines to get more samples per quarter section, all that kind of stuff. But when you don't know or you have no idea, so if Sean, if I have a contract book for a number two 14.5 wheat hard red, and I harvest that first field and it's harvest delivery, well, when I'm sending a sample in that's parts per million, how do I know that I'm not giving away grade? How do I know I'm not sending in a number one all the time? And at the end of the day, the facility's not trying to take me for what I'm worth, but I'm busy. I maybe have a third party that's hauling that into the facility for me, and they're just dropping it off, and it's getting graded, and I'm finding out after the fact what's happening. There's a large amount on my bottom line as a farmer that I could be giving away. Also, another example, Sean, if I'm bringing it in from the field, and I know now that that bin that I've loaded all day long has been a number one. But I know at the end of the day, I loaded 2 trucks and I got to unload them at evening. If I put those in that bin, it's going to turn it into a number three. Would I do it? So there's all these
Yeah.
quality aspects of you can't, what's you can't manage what you can't measure. And so we don't know. There's been no ability to have a clear understanding on quality.
And if you could do it on the combine, that would be fantastic. You would have that information way earlier on a broader have a on a broader sample size than just sort of how some of the sampling happens on the farm today. That's pretty interesting stuff. So I guess to wrap up here, Kyle, who at the end of the day, who is your customer? Is it the farmer or is it the grain company?
So the real exciting part for us was I set out, expecting that the farmer would be the main customer, still is. Like our number one, we're always thinking about the farm, coming from the farm, that's never going to change. But once I got into this market and realized that it's not just the farmer, everybody in the supply chain experiences these same problems, Sean. So all the problems we have at the farm gate, as soon as the grain buyer takes custody of that grain, they got to move it on a contract, and they're playing a high volume, low margin game. They need to know as detailed as they can what the quality is as well. And so they run into the exact same problem. Then you have third party inspections. So our customer base actually just goes all the way through the supply chain, which is excellent for something like this, Sean, because consistency is key. If we can get it to be the same throughout the entire supply chain, we remove all of that ability or unwanted ability for discrepancy or negotiations.
That's cool. Are you doing this with? I never even asked you how the tech works. Is it cameras or what are you doing?
Yeah, so it's machine vision cameras and then also near infrared spectroscopy using AI models underneath both of those to be able to detect all the things from protein, ergot, all the way through all the visual, insect damage, mildew damage, everything from top to bottom.
You just dropped every bloody keyword that's like possible right there. That was pretty good. I like that.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Good stuff. Yeah, very cool tech. Based out of Saskatchewan, obviously, very much a North American appeal there indeed. Kyle, thanks for joining us here today on Real Ag Radio.
It's a pleasure. Appreciate it, Sean.